Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Herman Cain. Sadly, he tragically passed away due to the coronavirus, COVID-19. And really, again, it's just that we're hearing a number of people that are passing away lately, celebrities, famous people, and some of it to the COVID-19 and some of it for other deaths attributed to other reasons. But I do believe that COVID-19 is in fact real because something is obviously causing deaths, and it is something that I believe actually exists. There's a lot of people that speculate. The conspiracy theorists will talk about, well, we'll see what happens around election time. Watch this magically disappear. Well, one thing's for sure: when we go to election time, we may have a better a conception, or will be able to it'll indicate one way or another whether this was something that was maybe a little bit distorted, or was it something that was veracious. It probably more will be told then, because I mean, if it does all of a sudden the numbers of the COVID-19 dramatically drop around that time, there's going to be a lot of people that will say, see, I told you so. But if the numbers are remaining steady around that time as far as confirmed cases for the coronavirus and the deaths attributed to it and what have you, then those people, the skeptics and cynics, will basically, whether they admit they're wrong or not, they probably would be, I would say they would be proven wrong, is what would happen. But anyway, enough of the Gemini moon rambling. I'm going to get to this chart for Herman Cain and talk about some natal placements and transits that might have contributed to the passing due to the coronavirus. Now, a thing about it is, I wasn't able to get a verified time of birth for him online. AstroTheme had a chart up for him, but to me it looked like a solar sunrise chart because it had the sun very close to the same position as the ascendant. So what I did was I did a solar sunrise chart, which is really, I think it's like about the same thing, if not the same chart, is on astrotheme.com. I do believe, though, this is what happened was, I think Astrotheme got information, but what it probably was, it was based on the solar sunrise time, but I don't know that 100%. But I'm going with the solar sunrise time when I'm putting the sun at the spot as the ascendant. And the thing about him, well, first off, talking about his sun being in Sagittarius, obviously he's a basic character. Sure, very jocular, very optimistic. Uh, a person that obviously was an incorrigible optimist, I'm sure, and saw a lot of positives in everything. He did run for office. I believe he probably had a lot of positive energy in doing so. And his moon is in solar sunrise time puts his moon in Aries, but the moon would be in Aries regardless of the time of the day. So his moon is definitely in Aries. So it shows that perhaps the emotional needs were connected. Maybe I would say, well, you could say combat to some degree, maybe debate, or maybe things that are associated. I mean, it could be things that are enjoyable associated with areas like playing, like some kind of combat board games or doing, or I mean, areas could also be associated like with welding, and it could be combat sports, or just general, could be sports competition, and things that are connected perhaps with leadership, anything that could be Aries related. And in matters with the military, perhaps he was a former presidential candidate, a business executive. He was a syndicated columnist, I believe, as well. He has Mercury conjunct his Venus in his natal chart, so it's not surprising where he could be writing and be making money connected with that. In writing, I don't know what he did exactly. I mean, Mercury in Sagittarius can encompass many different subjects. Of course, it could be maybe he wrote about philosophy or religion or sports, or anything that could be Sagittarius related, and maybe writing about foreign countries and cultures. things of that nature. Anything that could be associated with the zodiac sign Sagittarius theology. And the thing about expanding horizons, a thing too that I'm looking at. I mean, as far as any transits are going, well, we'll talk about any natal placements that might be tied in to his passing due to the coronavirus. Now, he does have Aries on the cusp of the fourth house in what I call the solar sunrise chart for him. So, I mean, the fourth house, of course, is associated with the end or latter part of life in astrology. Now, this is something we were talking about. Aries can be associated like with headaches and fevers. I believe those are things that may be associated with the coronavirus. He also had transit Mars, transit Chiron is in that fourth house as well, so that could be an indicator of some suffering, physical suffering that could be associated with something Aries related, going back to perhaps fevers and headaches as well. And you're talking about too, he does have in the solar sunrise chart Mercury in Sagittarius, and it's retrograde, and it's in the 12th house. And Mercury retrograde, I mean, he's got Mercury in Sagittarius, it isn't its detriment, but it's also being in the 12th house of restrictions. Mercury can be associated with breathing, and the fact that it's retrograde probably doesn't help matters either. So those are some things I'm seeing as far as natal placements, transits that can be connected perhaps with his death due to the coronavirus. He also in this chart, he does have as far as the eighth house cusp in the solar sunrise chart, he does have it at 29 degrees. The eighth house cusp in his I'm sorry, no, it's not. It's at 25 degrees, actually. My bad. What I'm looking at is the sixth house cusp of health, and that is at, in the solar sunrise chart, it's at 29 degrees Taurus. So, I mean, you're talking about 29 degrees in astrology can be is a critical degree. It could be crisis oriented. He has it on the sixth house cusp of health in Taurus, and when you're having in Taurus, I mean, I believe sore throat can be associated with, as far as symptoms associated with the coronavirus, and also he may have been going through some coughing as well, and maybe even you're talking about the coronavirus. When somebody gets that, also a person may have body aches, so there might have been some body aches, just general pain that he may have had in the throat or neck area. Now, another thing, and you're talking about as well, he also has Uranus in that Uranus in Gemini in that sixth house. And when you have Uranus in the sixth house, that could be, I mean, I have that in my chart. I actually have it conjunct my sixth house cusp. I have irrevocable nerve damage, as many of you may know, very extensive nerve damage. I don't know if he ever experienced any nerve damage, but it wouldn't surprise me. And having it in Gemini as well, because Gemini can give issues with the nerves, it wouldn't surprise me if he had some kind of nerve damage going on with his arms and his hands and fingers and shoulders even, perhaps at this time. But as far as the coronavirus goes, I mean, Uranus in the sixth house can sometimes manifest in very shocking, unexpected health-related issues. You're talking about in the sign of Gemini, which could be associated with breathing problems. He might have been going through very sporadic and erratic breathing issues, since we're talking about Uranus in Gemini in that sixth house. He was also going through, I mean, at this time as well, he was going through his nodal return in his natal chart. He had, based on the solar sunrise time, he has the North Node in Gemini at 29 degrees. Again, a critical degree. The North Node can be about you're talking about one's future. And when you're talking about a North Node, and again, it's a critical degree, his future sadly may have been tied into some Yeah, as far as something, Gemini related, that could be health related, again, going back to breathing, respiratory issues. And when you're going through a nodal return, often significant events may transpire at this time of the nodal return. Now, another thing that I'm seeing in his chart, okay, he does have, as far as natal placements, I mean, he's got Mars conjunct his Pluto in his chart, and when you have when you're talking about the Mars conjunct Pluto, that could, in some cases, that could manifest in a death where you're going through some physical issues. Now, being in Leo, I don't think he had a heart attack or stroke connected. It was now I've read at least in one source that that can be an issue that can be tied in to the coronavirus. I'm not sure if it's something that has to do with an already existing condition that may be exacerbated by the coronavirus, or if it could be actually spurred on by it. But I did see in one source that that can be a possible, as far as a health situation that can arise in connection with the coronavirus, one way or another. But you may want to confirm and confer that online. Now, another thing I'm seeing in his natal chart, he does have Jupiter conjunct Chiron. And as I've stated in previous videos, Jupiter can be very paradoxical, could be very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have a tendency to enlarge and expand. It may have enlarged as far as some possible suffering on his part. The fact that it's in Libra, it makes me think that maybe there may have been some issues not tied to the coronavirus, but if he was maybe going through some issues Libra related, that like such as the lower back or kidneys. Um, Another thing too is you're talking about uh, when you have, of course, the sixth house cusp at 29 degrees in your chart, the 12th house cusp will be 29 degrees as well. And in this case, he has the 12th house cusp at 29 degrees Scorpio in the solar sunrise chart. Again, 29 degrees can be a critical degree in astrology, one associated with crisis and upheaval. And you're talking about it being in Scorpio, the zodiac sign associated with crisis. And he has it, and Scorpio can be associated with viruses. I would say that would really ostensibly be the sign associated with viruses, because Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. Pluto is associated with viruses. So now, another thing that I'm seeing too is that when I'm looking at transit Neptune, which really could really be a very strong culprit in this, because this coronavirus pandemic, because Neptune can be about diseases and Pisces can be about ones that can't be eradicated or cured. Like has it in, it's transiting the third house in the solar sunrise chart, so I wonder if it might have done something strongly to his rational thinking. It was also at least making, I think it was actually making, it looks like a square to his natal sun, so that is another indicator of the physical issues that can be, as far as him being affected physically by this, because the sun can be associated with the physical body in astrology. And of course, you're having a conflict, transit Neptune squaring the sun in Sagittarius. The sun in Sagittarius, the wants, can be connected with sports, adventure, the outdoors, and it probably, this thing really limited him. You're talking about Neptune Pisces energy associated with isolation, and the fact that he had transit Neptune and Pisces in that third house, that really likely strongly impacted his communications and things with his neighbors in short journeys at this time. And his rational thinking may have been a little bit more nebulous and unclear, more so than usual. And again, the square to the sun to me suggests that it did have some really strong issues with his vitality and his energy level at this time. So it's really not much more as far as any transits go. Transit Pluto was opposing, or at least a loose opposition to his natal Saturn at this time. So it just, I mean, and he also had transit Jupiter making an opposition to his natal Saturn. So you're talking about, I mean, issues with Jupiter. You're talking about when you have Jupiter opposing Saturn, you obviously have the planet Jupiter about exuberance and enthusiasm going against Saturn, which could be associated and with more despondency. Saturn and Cancer being could be limitations in the home and the family life. So it really probably caused a lot of tension for him at this time, and the fact he actually transit Mercury was also looks like it was conjunct, or at least very close proximity to his natal Saturn. So that's an indicator of very, as far as despondent thoughts at this time, and really a lot of heavy, serious thinking, and really the responsibility, more to his home life, to introversion. That's where a lot of that thinking, I'm sure, was really going at this time. Transit Mercury and Cancer collectively for people can manifest in people becoming a little bit more despondent about their own, their life, their own trials and tribulations they have to endure, and about the world's issues as well. So it tells me that even though he has a very buoyant Sagittarius sun, he was likely starting to feel a lot of, the despondency, and feeling very melancholy in this matter as far as the coronavirus so anyway, people, well, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.